News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks. President Trump has ordered a new attack on Iran as soon as this weekend. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, which says the U.S. is considering striking energy infrastructure, including oil refineries and power plants, which would mark a major escalation in this conflict. Trump talked about losing confidence in Iranian negotiators during a cabinet meeting at Camp David yesterday.
All they do is make me angry. They just make me angry. Any other questions?
Do you still believe that you can reach a deal with Iran, given that you talked about how disloyal they are?
I'm losing faith in them because they do lie.
Bloomberg's Dan Williams has the latest from Jerusalem now and says Israel could also join at a moment's notice.
These reports have emerged just a couple days after the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu returned from a much-watched visit to Washington. There was some speculation at the outset that sparks would fly between him and the U.S. President Trump, given their quite public divisions over the course of the war in recent weeks and months. There was certainly no evidence of that during the meeting, and we may discover, if these leaks prove true, that if anything, they were there to decide jointly on the next course of action, on the resumption of joint military action against Iran.
Dan Williams on Bloomberg this weekend. Trump also took issue with missile attacks that Iran launched earlier this week against U.S. forces in Jordan that ended a multi-day pause in fighting, though no American attacks were carried out overnight. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez is facing pressure for his migration policy after thousands of migrants from Ceuta flooded and crossed the border into Morocco this week. Dozens have now died, including some who drowned and others who were killed in a stampede to cross a breakwater barrier. Leaders have vowed to impose tougher border checks, but Sánchez has been criticized by other leaders, including the White House, who've linked the chaos to Spain's lax migration laws. FIFA President Gianni Infantino is scrapping a controversial plan to sell a stake of the World Cup to outside investors after getting a ton of backlash this week. Bloomberg's Ed Kalegi has details.
The reversal comes after the governing regional football body for Europe vowed to boycott the World Cup entirely should FIFA push ahead with the plan, which sought to create an entity to house media rights, including those for the World Cup. Infantino sought to bring in as much as $4.2 billion of outside capital based on a $20 billion valuation for that entity. Ed Kalegi, Bloomberg Radio.
Paramount Skydance has asked a federal judge to hold a trial November 4th in a lawsuit by a group of states challenging its planned merger with Warner Brothers Discovery. States have said April's better, giving lawyers more time to gather evidence from the company, but a judge will ultimately decide and likely give substantial weight to potential cost and uncertainty for the companies involved. Chevron posted record second quarter results this week and expects those margins to remain elevated despite higher oil and gas prices over war-driven supply disruptions. CFO Eimear Bonner talked to Bloomberg about its operating strategy.
We have been in active discussions with the Iraqi Prime Minister and his teams on a number of options for the future. So this is something that we work well in advance. I mean, part of our business is that we produce 4 million barrels of oil per day and we have to replace that. So we're in a depletion business. And so stacking options for the future, competitive options is part of doing business.
Chevron reaped almost $5 billion in second quarter profit while pushing U.S. refineries close to max capacity to satisfy demand. Big tech is committing about $2.4 trillion over the next few years on AI infrastructure. That includes Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon, which have all increased commitments on leases, buildings, energy, and equipment to help build fleets of data centers. They've all cited a need to capture massive demand for AI computing power. Elon Musk has lost his trillionaire status following sharp sell-offs this week in SpaceX and Tesla. The former trillionaire, as he referred to himself on X, saw his net worth peak at $1.3 trillion on June 16th, just before SpaceX's big IPO. It now stands at $684 billion on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. That's a more than $600 billion decline, which is still more than any other billionaire has ever been worth.
Because I'm not just Peter Parker. I'm Spider-Man.
And Spider-Man Brand New Day is already making box office history, scoring a record-breaking $72 million in previews. The previous record holder was Avengers Endgame, which made $60 million back in 2019. That now puts Spidey on track for the biggest opening weekend of all time. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks, and this is Bloomberg.